Hey, Wesley Chapel friends and family, Mr. Reggie here. This week is our last book of the Old Testament. This week we looked at the book of Malachi. We kind of switched things up this week. We watched a video together. So hope you guys stick around and watch it. Next week we have something special, but you got to stick around and watch to see what it is. All right, you guys enjoy it. See it. All righty. So I'm going to start sharing my screen so we can watch the video.
The book of the prophet Malachi. He lived about years after the Israelites had returned from their Babylonian exile, and his message was directed to the people who had been living in Jerusalem for some time now. The temple had been rebuilt a while ago, and things were not going well. Just remember the stories from Ezra and Nehemiah. Now, when the Israelites first returned from exile, their hopes were high. They would return and rebuild their lives in the temple. All of the great promises of the prophets would come true. The Messiah would come and set up God's kingdom over a unified Israel and over the nations and bring justice and peace for all. But that's not what happened. Israelites who repopulated the city proved to be just faithful to justice. So in Malachi, we find out just how corrupt. The book's designed as a series of disputes, with God saying something, making a claim or an accusation. And then Israel will disagree or question God's statement. And then God will respond and offer the last word. This happens 6 times. In the first 3 disputes, God exposes Israel's corruption, and in the final 3 disputes, he confronts their corruption. And the overall impression you get from these arguments and disputes is that the exile fundamentally didn't change anything in the people. Israel's hearts are as hard as ever. The first dispute starts when God says that he still loves his covenant people despite their failures. And Israel rudely objects, saying, "How have you shown us any love?" And so God reminds them of how he graciously chose the family of Jacob, their ancestor, to become the carrier of God's covenant promises, instead of Esau, his brother, and the family that came from him, who eventually came to ruin. Remember the stories from Genesis and the book of Obadiah. So right from this first dispute, Israel is exposed as suspicious, doubting God's love and faithfulness. The second dispute exposes a problem with Israel's second temple. God accuses the people of despising and defiling the temple. And the people fire back, "How have we despised you?" And so God responds by focusing on the people, how they're bringing shamefully lame offerings of these sick, blemished animals that show that they don't value or honor their God. But it's not just the people, it's the priests too who run the temple. They not only tolerate but participate in these corrupt forms of worship. From top to bottom, God's people have proven faithless. In the third dispute, God accuses the Israelite men of treachery against him and their wives, which of course they deny. And God exposes the toxic combination of idolatry and divorce taking place. You have Israelite men marrying non-Israelite women and then adopting the worship of their wives' ancestral gods into their homes. Remember the story from Nehemiah chapter 13. And so Malachi connects this to a wave of men divorcing their wives for no good reason. And the people are all with this. And Malachi says, no, it's a betrayal of the covenant with God. And so Malachi transitions into the second set of disputes that confront Israel's rebellion. So the fourth dispute begins with the Israelites accusing God of neglect, saying, "Where is the God of justice?" They see injustice and corruption abounding, and God seems to do nothing. So God responds by saying that he'll send a messenger who will prepare the people for God's personal return in the day of the Lord. He will come like fire to purify his people and to remove idolatry and sexual immorality and injustice so that only the faithful remnant is left to become his people. In the fifth dispute, God calls the people to turn back to him, to which the people say, "How can we turn back?" And so God confronts their selfishness. He shows how they've stopped offering a tithe of their income to the temple. Now, that word tithe just means 1/10. It's the amount of their income and produce that the Israelites were to annually donate to support the temple and its priests. The practice is laid out in different parts of the Torah. Now we know from Malachi and from the book of Nehemiah that the people were neglecting this responsibility. And so the temple was falling into disrepair. And so God confronts them. He says he wants to bless them with abundance, but only if they're going to be faithful. In the final dispute, the people accuse God and say that it's pointless to serve him. They observe wicked, prideful people succeeding in life, and God does nothing. And God's response, for the first time in the book, is not a speech. but rather a short story about the faithful remnant in Israel, people who fear the Lord and get together and talk about how to honor God and serve him. And so God orders that a scroll of remembrance be written for these people so that they can read the scroll and remember God's character and promises. Malachi, he's reflecting here on the divine gift of the scriptures, how they point us to the past to remember what God has done in order to inspire faithfulness and hope for the future, which leads to the conclusion of the book. It picks up and develops the imagery of the fourth dispute about the coming day of the Lord, but it develops it further. God says that he's appointed a day of purifying judgment that will consume the wicked from among his people. But what the conclusion adds is the future of the because for them, the day of the Lord is not a threat, it's a cause for joy. It'll be like the rays of the rising sun that bring healing and life and hope for the future. And so Malachi's disputes come to a close, but there's still a bit more to this book. The final 3 verses, they're not part of the disputes, and actually they function like a concluding appendix, bringing closure not just to Malachi, but to the whole collection of the Torah and the prophets. So first, the reader is called to remember the law, or the Torah, of my servant Moses. This recalls the story and the laws of the covenant that you find in the first 5 books of the Bible. But then we hear this summary of the books of the prophets. I will send the prophet Elijah before the day of the Lord, who will restore the hearts of God's people. So this conclusion, it summarizes the Torah and the prophets as a unified story that points to the future. Israel was redeemed by God, and then they betrayed him through their rebellion and hard hearts, breaking the laws of the Torah. But the scriptures anticipate a future day when God's going to send a new prophet, a Moses, a new Elijah, who will restore God's people and heal their hard hearts. Remember all of the promises from Deuteronomy and Jeremiah and Ezekiel. And so this concluding appendix presents the scriptures as a divine gift to read and to ponder and to pray over. They tell the truth about the human condition, about our selfishness and our sin. But they also announce God's promise that one day he would send a messenger and then show up personally to confront evil, to restore his people and bring his healing justice. And it's that future hope that Malachi and the Torah and all of the prophets are about.
All right. All right. Now, first question. Around what time did Malachi live?
So it said, according to the video, it said 100 years after the exile. It said. I don't know if that's
Correct. Boom. Good job. Got the first question down.
all
right.
then.
Next question is a true or false. All right. So true or false. The people who lived in the New Jerusalem were better than their ancestors. True or false?
What did you? The people what?
Who lived in the
Yeah,
New
say it, repeat it.
Say it, repeat it. All right.
Yes.
The people who lived in the New Jerusalem were better than their ancestors. True or false?
They was better than their better than their ancestors.
Mm.
False.
False? You said false, Leah?
Yes.
Boom. Why weren't they better?
Boom.
What did they say in there? You remember what they said?
Is it something about the temples? I think they didn't. Oh, that's from the last book. Or the one before.
Yeah, they said they were just as corrupt as their ancestors. Right. So, someone explain to me the first dispute.
Between the people and God, he was like, I still love you. And they was like, how when all this bad stuff is happening?
Mm-hmm.
And what did God say to them in return to that?
That I cannot remember.
He talked about 2 people. He said, instead of bringing you from the line of this person, I brought you from the line of this person.
Oh, Jacob.
Boom. Good job. You're on it.
Good job.
Uh,
All right, so somebody explain the second dispute.
I don't remember that one. I'm gonna rewatch the video. Let's speed it up.
It has to do with a physical building.
Okay. Yeah.
You got it, Jesse?
I think so. So didn't it have to do with the temple itself was like in disrepair because they weren't doing anything with the upkeep? And it said something about the priests who were primarily responsible for the upkeep and the offerings and all of that. The offerings weren't any good either.
Yep.
Was that the one?
Yep.
Or is that the wrong? Okay.
Good job. All right. So going down the list, what was the third dispute?
Oh my god.
It has to do with two famous words. I do.
Oh, marriage and adultery.
Yep. Boom. What about it?
That they were doing it. That they were like bringing the women that they married. I cannot remember. I cannot think of what it is.
They were not from Israel, right?
Mm-hmm. What were they doing? What were they doing with their Israel wives? What happened to them?
That's the part I'm stuck on.
They married the Canaanites instead.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, they didn't marry within them their
Right.
people. They married basically married outside their race or whatever. I can't think of the word for it or something like that.
So I thought the issue was
Go ahead,
more
Jeff.
about taking the worship practices of foreign wives.
Mm-hmm.
So I think at that time they were actually okay with taking other wives, but
Oh.
so it wasn't really adultery because they could be married to more than one wife. But it does sound like they were divorcing their current wives, or maybe they were neglecting their wives. But it was about, he said, turning against God and their wives by taking. I remember that picture. There's this sexy lady, and he's like, "Marry me and worship my gods." He's like, "Okay."
Oh no.
Yeah, they were divorcing their wives and then committing idolatry by marrying other wives and taking up their false gods.
Okay.
Good job, everybody. Everybody
Okay.
put that together. So what is the fourth? Fourth dispute? Woo, woo, woo. Thumbs up, Miss Brittany. I like it. So what is the fourth dispute? This one was started by the people. The people started it first.
This one was about they're like, where's the God of justice?
Mm-hmm.
And he said, I'm gonna bring a messenger and he will carry out my justice, I think.
Yeah, and he will bring a what? What type of fire? What type of fire will he bring? Purifying fire. And who will be left behind?
The people the faithful ones?
The faithful, that R word. Yeah. The faithful
remnants.
Yeah, the faithful remnants. Boom. All right. So what was dispute number 5?
Oh, this one's about tithing.
Yeah, tithing. What is tithing? How much are we supposed to tithe?
10%.
Wow. Miss Brittany got the 10 fingers up, 10%. So how did God start off? What did he say?
I'm sorry, what? Say that again.
How did God start off? He said, do what? Do this back to me.
Turn.
Yeah, turn back to me.
Give it to me.
And the people said how, and God said tithe 10%.
Yeah.
So what is the final dispute? The last dispute.
Ooh, let me see.
Don't answer it, Mom. Do you know the answer, Leah? I mean, Elizabeth?
No. Go ahead. A long one. Answer, Mom.
No, I'm trying to figure it out myself.
Okay, so
People started it off again, talking to God.
Say it again.
The people started off again, talking to God.
Ooh. I'm trying to think.
Was
I do. Yes.
Got it? I have an idea, Miss Brittany.
I don't know. All I remember at the end, they said something about his returning.
Is that's the last dispute? Number 6?
I think that's the summary, right? Or the
Yeah, I think it's the summary.
Okay. Something about the faithful remnants or something, said something. Is that you talking about dispute number 6?
Yeah.
And it's about, because I'm watching a video, that's why I'm at, trying to, I ain't even gonna lie. It said the faithful is about the scroll of remembrance.
Mm-hmm.
Is
Why did the people confront God first? What did they say to him?
They said wicked people succeed and God does nothing.
Boom. And how did God respond?
with a short story?
Yep. Short story talking about what?
Hold on. It says, it's about the faithful remnant. It says the faithful read the scroll to remember God's character and promise, the divine gift of scriptures. And I guess to point out the past and inspire hope for the future.
Good job, Mr. Name. You got it.
So smart. So smart.
All right. So what and who is the conclusion about?
The conclusion. Ooh.
Where everybody was at the house and it was like screaming and shouting.
It's about the future of the remnant.
Yep, the future of the remnant.
The future?
You got it.
You like, give me more.
The future of the remnant. And do you remember what they described the son as?
You got the answer right, Mr. Reggie.
You got it?
okay.
No.
Yeah.
This
You got kicked
So, Miss Jessie was just reading from her Bible.
I had said that the only problem is if I read it, you can't see me but you can hear me, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So it said, and the last verse of the whole book is, and he will turn the hearts of fathers to their children and the hearts of children to their fathers, lest I come and strike the land with the decree of utter destruction. So that to me is meaning that he's going to send someone who is the judge. And not a lot of people like to think about Jesus as the judge, as opposed to the loving God. But if you think about it, Jesus was both at the same time. So when you were talking, Brittany, about Jesus, about someone returning, I think that because this is the last book of the Old Testament. So if we think about what's coming next, like, it would make sense that the person returning would be Jesus. I don't know, but that's just something I'm throwing to the wall. That's my thought process.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
I missed.
Where did he go now? Oh.
Is that all I missed? More?
Huh?
Is that all I missed, or was there any more?
That was it.
That was it. Okay.
We were trying to find the answer to what you said.
Mr. Jeff and I came up with the answer, but then Jesse just drove it home.
Well, all I did was read something.
Drove it home.
Good job. Sorry I can't show my face. My phone's on a charger.
Oh, that's okay.
Okay.
We can still hear you.
Okay.
Is that one or
We can hear you.
All right. Let's see. Anybody any takeaways from this book?
Tithing.
Tithing.
I do understand the purpose of it. At first I never understood the purpose, but now I do. So, and I make it a point to try to get remotely close to it. I don't always, to be honest, but I do give for tithing. I do give my tithes.
And volunteer my money on top of it, period.
Because the 10% depends on what your income is. Like, it depends on.
Yeah, I know, but I just said for me, I don't.
No. It depends on the season of the life you're in. Like, it depends on what season of life you're in, whether you're financially able to.
Yep.
I like that.
I like the discipline of just doing it. And you have different ways you can do it. Give it to God. But it's so, like, I always think back to that poor lady who gave all that she had.
Yeah.
And
or the tax collector in the temple too. From, I think it's Matthew, the tax collector that came and said, I don't have anything, but and then the parable was about the other man. I can't remember where in the Bible this is. But the other man, the Pharisee and the tax collector, one was a rich guy who gave all the financial things, and the one who ended up getting the props was the guy who came in the temple and said, I have nothing, but I'm going to give you stuff anyway.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember where.
Are you thinking of the prayer of the Pharisee and the prayer of the sinner?
There was a
sinner went away justified because he was humble and.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I just can't remember, like, what. The thing is, I can remember all the different stories I have, like, you know what I mean? But I can't remember where, like, they are. They necessarily are. That's the difficult.
Where they are in the Bible, yeah.
I'm trying to remember, like, where is that to find it?
Yeah. So one thing that reminds me of is the times when I have spent in Rwanda or in Belize, serving, working, just meeting and walking with people who have absolutely nothing. I met kids that were too malnourished to grow hair. And the hospitality that they offered, was second to none. And the gratitude. So, like, when we would go to Mass after communion, they would do a song of thanksgiving. Always the most energetic song of the service. They were so grateful. And I think that's what the spirit of the tithe is about. Being so grateful to God that you give, and that spiritual discipline of giving out of gratitude helps reinforce the spirit of gratitude, which is something that carries over to a lot of other areas of life.
Yeah.
And so it was just really inspiring to be with people who lived in houses made out of mud bricks, like dried mud.
Oh yeah.
Thatched roof, dirt floor, no electricity, no water. Joyful people.
And we're still,
Yeah, I think for me, when I was younger, I didn't really understand tithing. Especially, it was a pretty nice church. So I'm like, hey, they have a lot of money. Obviously, they don't need my money. As a high schooler, they don't need my money. But then as I got older, I understood that, I'm just giving back what God provided me. And I'm not getting everything back. I'm only giving 10% back. So I think just understanding, God has provided this for me, and that's why I'm giving it back. Yeah, so.
Right.
Any
what
other
about you, Miss
takeaways?
Brittany? Yeah.
What on tithing?
No,
Or whatever.
I guess whatever.
Yeah.
Elizabeth's taking notes.
I don't know what she's doing.
Gathering wisdom.
We're gonna go with that. Mr. Jeff, you know how teenagers are. We're gonna go with that. I think we lost Brittany.
Yeah.
Yeah. She done ran off.
It says she's still on.
Gotta be frozen or something.
I don't know. She went somewhere.
I'm sorry, I didn't have an answer.
We steady just having a conversation on you, and you tell us something.
It's funny.
Okay, what about tithing?
I was trying to think for a very long time. Then I was like, oh, I'm just going to go with the frozen.
Let it go. Let it go.
You were so wrong for that one.
About ties?
Yes, just answer that one.
I like to do it. I like to tithe. I don't know who laughed, but don't laugh.
I don't know who left.
I do. I like to tithe. I guess I don't know. I've always done it, and I don't know. I guess I just never had an issue with doing it. Even when I was younger, I was just like, oh, they get to give money. I want to give money. Sometimes when I'm in a pinch, it does hurt, but I understand why, and I still do it. But he's always been faithful, so I say, why not?
True.
I agree.
I think you may have been the only kid in the world who wanted to give away that money. Miss Brittany.
I'm like, I earned this money.
All my kids, and I think I might have done this when I was a kid too. I always wanted to put something in too, but it always came from mom's purse.
Right.
Yeah.
That was the best part, because it didn't come out of my pocket. It came from hers. So that was always the best part. I mean, when I tied, like if the girls, before they didn't have a job or whatever, I would give them money. I would give them at least $1 to put in, so they can still feel like they are part of the service as well. And I think parents should do that, even if it's just a quarter or 50 cents or something, to allow the kids to understand about what tithing is, and that, to me, that's important. So that's one of the reasons why I would just give them $1 and say, here, take it up, pay your tithes, and
Right.
yeah. Because I make them anyway now. So as long as you got money in your pocket, you're going out and going to the store buying unnecessary. Yeah, I always tell them at least give $5. You can do that every week, every Sunday. Give $5.
$3 a month. That's stuff is good.
Yeah.
Oh, they hear me.
$5 add up.
Yeah, but hey, but then when you don't realize it, like I've seen when I have given my tithe and I did it with a glad heart, I always seem to be blessed. A blessing comes my way sometime at the end of the week or something like that. And it's not because I do it because I want something in return. It just seems to line up that way where, I may not get it that week, I may get it the next week, but a blessing always seems to come my way, I don't know.
I like it.
I like that too.
All right, we got 6 minutes. Now what?
6 minutes. Dougie Fresher on. Now, I think
maybe Elizabeth can lead us in closing prayer with that wisdom she's been writing down.
Elizabeth. All right.
You want to tell them about what we're doing starting next week?
Yeah, I can do that.
Yep.
So starting next week on Monday, Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday, we're going to meet via Zoom at 6 p.m. Okay, so Monday will be kind of like a relaxed type environment, not structured, time to pray together or talk about anything else that comes up, get some announcements or updates or anything. And then Wednesday, obviously, we're going to stick to our Bible study together. We're going to continue watching it together and then discussing it. Feel free to watch it beforehand if you think you may need to take notes or something. And then Saturdays will continue to be our game nights at 6 p.m. So
okay, so we're adding one.
Saturday. Yep. So Monday is just going to be like a relaxed time, non-structured.
That's good. Okay.
Yep. I miss anything, Ms. Brittany? Is that it? That's it. All righty. Anybody want to pray us out? Elizabeth? You had the double thumbs up. You want to pray us out? No?
No.
Well, technically, Mr. Jeff threw you out there, so Mr. Jeff technically has to pray. But it looks like he left us. So I'll close us out. If you want to bow your eye, I think I almost messed it up. Bow your eyes and close your heads, and we'll pray. Lord, thank you for allowing us to come together once again for another awesome Bible study. I'm glad I get to, even though I'm not together in the same room as everybody, I get to look out and see them having fun, see them learning more about you, Lord. I just say thank you for everything that you've given us, and thank you for the hope and the new Jerusalem and the new kingdom that we have, Lord. We just want to watch over each and every individual that's under your kingdom now, Lord, and everyone who will be under your kingdom. We say thank you for the beautiful weather. Thank you for life. Pray all these things in Jesus' name, amen.
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 Yeah.
Sorry, I disappeared there. My son had a cooking emergency.
Emergency.
Not playing.
What are you making for dinner?
He's making grilled cheese and soup. I mean,
Maximus Brittany's.
cheese
know.
on the burner and spilled the soup and was
Oh,
having
man.
a little moment. So we got it taken care of there.
Gotcha.
All right.
I don't have anything else. Anybody has anything else? Nothing else?
Nope.
Nope.
Okay.
All righty.
Not at all.
See you guys
Bye,
Saturday.
everybody.
All
Love
right,
you all.
Yeah.
Bye.
Love
Bye.
y'all.
Come on, leave, man.
Everybody, hope you like this Bible lesson. Hope you enjoyed it. So next week, we're going to switch things up. We're going to do like a little Jeopardy review of the last about 5 to 6 weeks we've been doing this via Zoom. So we're going to do a little Jeopardy. The kids love Jeopardy. So we're going to do a Jeopardy review the last 5 to 6 weeks since we finished the Old Testament today. So if you guys join us next week for the Jeopardy review, and you guys have a great, blessed day. See you.